What's really going on in China? That's what today's video is all about. I'm going to expose everything that's happening right now, things that are so key, so important for you to understand. The first thing, we are going to look at the past. What has China done? What have they said they were going to do? The second thing is the present. Are they doing what they said they would accomplish? And what is happening right now? The third is the future, of course. What is going to happen in the coming weeks and months and years? All of that and more. Let's begin. So let's flip back the pages of history, and you can see China telling its citizens to stockpile food as the controls are tightened. This was back in November of 2021. But let's go back a little bit further. Here you can see the suggestion is China hoarding food, gold, and other commodities in anticipation of a global collapse. That's just a question many have asked that. This was back in 2019. So you started to see, remember 2019, you started to see the purchase of a lot of different things, stockpiles in fact, of many different things. And it really begged the question, what does China know? China hoards over half of the world's grain, pushing up global prices. This is brand new information. Well, December 23rd, 2021. Testy ties with the US and Australia could be prodding China to boost food reserves. This is really key to understand because it tells you what they said previously, what it looked like they were doing, and now here we are today in the present. Less than 20% of the world's population has managed to stockpile more than half of the world's globe's maize and other grains, leading to steep price increases across the planet and dropping more countries into famine. Now that's a lot of finger pointing, but the fact remains is that they have been purchasing a lot of grain. Now, yes, population increasing, perhaps the demand is increasing, perhaps they have to deal with crop failures and maybe livestock problems and so on. Okay, fine. But the pace at which they are increasing is starting to really many people are starting to ask that question. What do they know? China's share of global grain stocks, you could see that. Maize, rice, wheat, soybeans, all increasing right now. Then you see this. China hoards over half of the world's grain, pushing up global prices. I'm going to stop here for just a moment to ask you, do you believe that if countries are paying the prices that are set out, that they should be able to do this? That you don't have a problem with this? What would you do? What should you, as an individual, do? What are the actions you should take? Should you do what China is doing and start to stockpile? Or should it be just enough for what you need? Let me know in the comments below. According to data from the USDA, China is expected to have 69% of the world's maize reserved by the first half of the crop year 2022. It's also projected to have 60% of the world's rice, 51% of the wheat. Unbelievable, to say the least, isn't it? This is a big amount, right? Look at this food imports by year, consistently, always increasing. Now, a lot of this is going from the US to China. They love their soybeans, and the US has provided that. But they have also gone to other countries, Brazil being one of them. They don't want to necessarily just have one partner, but you have this partnership because there are benefits to both sides. There's no doubt about that. But what's going on financially? PBOC, open market net injection. They're starting to do this again. We'll see if it's sustained, but essentially how much cash is being pumped out into the system from the central bank. And we need to see this at a time in which, I believe I have it right here, China's credit impulse. I have said this many times, believing that, this could be one of the most important indicators. Because as you can see here, it tends to move and flow with what happens in the global economy. Here you can see this major decline. And the suggestion, we don't know yet, it will only come in time, that we are heading up. The amount, the China credit impulse, I mentioned it 100 times before, but if you're new to the channel, essentially how much money is being lent out in the financial system in China. And of course, more being lent out then moves into purchasing of commodities, purchasing of goods, and so on. And that reverberates throughout the global economy. Okay? So are we heading in that direction? If that's the case, they would be going basically in the exact opposite direction as the rest of the world. Quite interesting. And then there's this. China's overtaking of the US economy delayed until 2033. So we're going to see what happens. But the suggestion here is that China will grow bigger than the United States economy. Now, these are measured by statistics that are largely manipulated, and we know that. But I do think it's important to have our focus for a moment on what exactly they are doing. Well, at a time in which we are seeing slower growth, the prospect of future growth has dimmed. We are looking at the stock market really pulling a lot of that demand from the future into the present, and we've really been running on fumes ever since. All of this adds up to suggest that things are going to be very different in 2022. Most people agree with that. What happened in 2021 will not be the case for 2022. My biggest worry, of course, is the likelihood of increased geopolitical tensions. And there are no two bigger countries than China and the US that have been facing off against each other throughout this period. Take a look. China's export values from January to November of every year in the billions of dollars. So you can see what has happened. US, Eurozone, and so on. And look, it has been increasing overall through this period, 2006 up until 2021. It's always going to be fluctuating, of course, but it is very clear. They're doing more exports, they're doing more imports. The economy really does, at this point, rely on those exports. But if other countries are not doing so well, then what happens? Well, they don't need enough of the imports, and so that affects China. So we've got to watch this. When they don't go towards domestic consumption fast enough, if there's a recession, a slowdown, and so on in other countries, that's going to affect them. This, I think, is massive. As an investor, you need to pay attention. I've talked about this so many times. Asia's going nuclear. The number of nuclear reactors currently in construction or in the preliminary construction stages per region. And it breaks it down, okay? Whether your opinion is positive or negative, or you worry or what have you, we need to understand that governments around the world are going towards nuclear. What does that mean for you? Well, you can see the demand for uranium skyrocketing. You have, the physical ETFs being developed. And you have all kinds of different things that are surrounding this right now at this time. I think it's huge. Does it mean that uranium is going to go up forever? No. But I do think it's interesting. Why? Because there's a push for eco-friendly and green and all of this. And whether you think it's good or not, the governments are pumping trillions of dollars over the next several years. The global spend on green technology will be trillions of dollars. So what does that do? Well, some companies benefit, certainly. One of my subscribers brought me this. I definitely found it. Another winter LNG cargo appears to divert to Europe from China. Isn't it interesting? It was going, you could see it here. I don't know if it might be a little bit small. If I could zoom in. There we go, a little bit bigger. By the way, some people complain about the charts not being big enough. Sometimes that's all the size they get. That's the maximum size. All right. So you could see it started going this way through the Panama Canal, got to approximately Hawaii, and then turned back. And it's just funny. It really is. Because now it's going to go to Europe because they're going to get a higher price. Because if Russia hasn't been giving enough for their needs, well, maybe the US will ship their goods over there. So I'm interested to see if that's just kind of a, one here, one there, or is it going to be a lot more going in that direction? We'll see. And then it brings me to this. I want to finish off with these two things. Wealthy investors want to own a little less of the everything bubble in 2022. I just wanted to shift gears for the end of this video to make you think, to bring this to you. Just shine a different light on this. Just over half expect the S&P 500 to finish next year with a gain of at least 5%. All right. So what they believe is slowdown, less growth, less economic growth, less stock market growth. More millionaire investors think that the economy will be stronger in 2022 than those who believe it will weaken. But when you break down the information, you can see that essentially less growth. It doesn't mean it didn't say a collapse, or they would never say that anyway, collapse or crash or anything like that, but simply slower. That's all, okay? So looking at this brings me to this here as well. High-profile LA crimes spark a rush for bulletproof cars, Rolex replicas, and safe rooms. You've seen this information before. It's not just about LA. It's not just about one instance. We've been noticing this. Crime off the charts in most major cities. There's, a whole host of different problems. We know that, okay? And I'm not going to get into the topics of that. I have some things that I believe are a cause of a lot of this. But regardless, we are walking into a time in which inflation is going to be off the charts. It already is crazy. And there's going to be a lot of people who don't have enough. And in that case, they take to the streets. On the back of my second book, I wrote, "Soon the earth will rumble under the heels of the angry mobs." And I do believe that will be the trend for 2022. Okay? If you found this video informative, just hit that thumbs up button. It's right down below. Before you go, hit that thumbs up button. I do appreciate it very much. This was a different kind of video. I hope you found it informative. Let me know what you think. All of the comments, I read them down below. I try to reply as many as I can. And if you haven't seen this video yet, you definitely want to check it out. So just click it and I'll see you there.